Most places feel familiar. You know what to expect: trees, mountains, water, sky. But not everywhere follows those rules. In California, there are places where scale shifts quietly, where forests rise beyond proportion, where valleys sink below expectation, and where light itself begins to feel different. Landscapes shaped by fire, ice, and time, slowly forming environments that don't quite behave like the world we think we understand. From granite walls that stand like unfinished architecture, to deserts where the ground holds the memory of vanished seas, to coastlines where land and ocean seem locked in quiet tension. This is not the California most people imagine. This is a different version of Earth, one where distance feels altered and reality becomes harder to measure. In this film, we move slowly through these places, not to explain them, but to experience how they feel. Because here, Earth doesn't always feel real anymore. Lake Tahoe lies along the Sierra Nevada crest, where granite shorelines meet cold, high-altitude water. In Lake Tahoe, California, United States, the landscape can feel unfamiliar: bright stone, sparse soils, and a basin carved by ice. The lake is a geologic bowl. Glaciers deepened it, and faulting helped shape its steep walls. Around Emerald Bay and Rubicon Point, polished rock and scattered boulders read like a frozen current of stone. Along the shallows, mats of algae and tiny invertebrates cling to submerged cobbles, turning the littoral zone into a living film. Deeper down, lake trout patrol dim water where pressure and temperature keep change slow. On land, Jeffrey pine and white fir draw hard lines between sunlit slopes and shaded pockets, while granite reflects heat back into the afternoon air. In winter, snowpack seals the ground, muffling sound and holding moisture for spring. Even the human edges, trails near D.L. Bliss State Park or the beaches by Tahoe City, feel defined by the basin's scale. The shoreline is narrow, and then suddenly depth takes over. What stays most distinctive is the water's clarity, a blue so clean and light-penetrating that rocks remain visible far below the surface, as if the lake has no distance at all. Rainbow Falls sits along a forested bend of the Middle Fork San Joaquin River, where water and volcanic stone meet in quiet, unexpected ways. In Rainbow Falls, California, United States, the landscape can feel unfamiliar, like a spare, high-country planet made from ash and ice. The trail moves through lodgepole pine and open pumice flats, remnants of eruptions that shaped the eastern Sierra. Underfoot, the ground is pale and gritty, a reminder that this is California's hidden alien world built on old fire. Nearby, basalt columns at Devil's Postpile hint at the region's deeper architecture, formed as lava, cooled and cracked into geometry. Glaciers later carved these valleys, leaving broad corridors where rivers now thread through dark rock. At the falls, yet the river narrows and drops over a ledge of volcanic material, turning steady flow into a textured curtain. The air changes in a few steps, cooler, wetter, and filled with fine spray that coats needles and stones. Even the sounds feel layered, the low rush of the main plunge, the quick chatter of side rivulets, and the soft hush that follows each gust of mist. In this thin mountain light, color and shadow trade places by the minute. What defines Rainbow Falls is the mist itself. When sun angles through it, a clear arc of color hangs briefly in front of the water before fading back into white spray. El Capitan sits along the north side of Yosemite Valley, a familiar name that still feels surprisingly personal when you finally stand in its shadow. Its presence is steady, almost architectural, shaped more by time than by spectacle. In El Capitan, California, United States, the day often starts with a hush, cool air sliding off the granite, and a thin ribbon of mist lingering near the Merced River. From the meadow, you can take in the wall's full breadth without craning your neck. Look closely, and the hidden gem is not a separate place, but a set of small vantage points people drift past, turnouts along Northside Drive, a quiet bend near El Capitan Meadow, and pockets of shade under Ponderosa pines. Each angle changes the texture of the rock. Ut. Climbers become tiny moving commas on the face, sometimes visible only when sunlight catches a helmet or a hanging rope. Even if you never touch the wall, it's easy to sense the careful choreography of patience and weather. Staying nearby is straightforward. Yosemite Valley has lodgings, and the gateway towns like El Portal and Mariposa usually have more options if you book a night ahead. Cell service can be spotty in the valley, but Wi-Fi is commonly available at hotels and some public areas. Late afternoon is when El Capitan is most itself, as the single, uninterrupted sweep of pale granite turns warm and luminous across the entire face. Half Dome holds its place above Yosemite Valley with a calm, unmistakable geometry, as if the mountain decided to stop halfway through a simple shape. Known formally as Half Dome, California, United States, it's a granite monolith carved by glaciers and time, its pale surface changing tone with cloud cover and season. Most visitors arrive on foot, following the mist trail past Vernal and Nevada Falls, where spray cools the air, and the sound of water lingers long after the steps turn to stone. Up higher, the route crosses open slabs and sparse pine, and the valley floor becomes a quiet map of meadows, the Merced River, and distant domes framed between trees. On summer days, the famous cables draw a line of climbers toward the summit. Oh, a place where patience matters as much as footing, and where world-dangerous roads doesn't feel like an exaggeration. Yet away from the crowd, Half Dome is also a study in small details. Mica flecks in granite, wind-sculpted juniper, and the way sound drops off, like a page turning on Haida Planet. What stays with you is the single smooth, near-vertical northwest face, a broad sheet of glacier-polished granite that catches late light and gives almost no shadow at all. Burney Falls sits in a cool pocket of Northern California, where pine forests meet black volcanic rock, and the air often carries a soft mist, even on bright days. At Burney Falls, California, United States, the water doesn't rely solely on the creek above. It arrives quietly from underground springs that have traveled through ancient lava flows. The overlook near the rim gives a clean, wide view, but the short trail down changes the experience, bringing the sound forward and cooling the face as spray drifts across the path. In MacArthur Burney Falls Memorial State Park, the forest floor is shaded with ferns and moss, and fallen needles soften footsteps around basalt columns and rounded boulders. Make time for the nearby shoreline of Lake Britain, where still coves reflect conifers and anglers and paddlers move slowly, framed by the same volcanic landscape that shaped the falls. A short drive connects you to the broader Cascade region, Hat Creek's clear channels, and the dark slopes near Mount Shasta, each place showing how water and lava have long shared the map. What stays with you is the constant sheet of spring water seeping straight through the porous basalt face, forming countless silver threads that keep the waterfall full and alive through summer. Death Valley National Park stretches across a wide basin and range landscape where light, rock, and distance do most of the talking. In Death Valley National Park, California, United States, the quiet can feel surprisingly close, even along a well-traveled road. At Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes, early morning brings soft shadows that sharpen every ripple in the sand. Stay a little longer, and the wind rewrites the surface, turning familiar footprints into clean, unmarked lines. Artist's Drive curls past mineral-stained hillsides, with artist's palette showing greens and pinks that look painted on but are entirely natural. Nearby canyons, like Golden Canyon, narrow into walls that hold heat and a muted, coppery glow. The park's higher elevations offer a different kind of hush, with telescope peak views that make the valley floor feel impossibly far away. At Wildrose, the charcoal kilns sit in plain sight, weathered and practical, like artifacts left where they were last used. For travelers, it helps to top off fuel whenever you can and download maps ahead of time, since service fades quickly between sites. You can usually find straightforward lodging around Furnace Creek or Stovepipe Wells, and Wi-Fi tends to be most reliable at larger lodges and visitor areas. At Badwater Basin, the valley's signature detail is underfoot, a broad salt crust broken into pale, geometric polygons. Standing 282 feet below sea level, the flats stretch outward in a white, granular silence that feels almost weightless. Big Sur is a stretch of California coast where mountains press close to the sea, leaving just enough room for a winding road and a few quiet turnouts. People pass through quickly, but the details reward a slower pace. In Big Sur, California, United States, start at Garapata State Park, where unmarked pullouts lead to pocket beaches and seasonal calla lilies tucked into damp gullies. From the sand, the surf sounds deeper here, as if the shoreline has more room to breathe. Farther south, Point Lobos State Natural Reserve offers an easy walk with uncommon textures. Cypress roots gripping stone, tide pools holding anemones, and kelp beds shifting just offshore. Harbor seals often rest on the rocks, indifferent to the lookout paths above them. For shade, Chufaifa Big Sur State Park brings you under redwoods and along the Big Sur River, where sunlight breaks into moving patches across the water. In late afternoon, the air cools fast, and the forest seems to draw sound inward. On the open coast again, McWay Falls is small but precise, a thin ribbon of fresh water dropping onto a protected beach that you can't reach by trail. The view is brief, yet it stays with you. What sets Big Sur apart is the hard edge of the Santa Lucia Range, steep, dark cliffs falling straight into the Pacific, with Highway 1 clinging to the rock above white water. Sequoia National Park feels like a separate planet tucked into the southern Sierra Nevada, where scale and time shift quietly underfoot. In Sequoia National Park, California, United States, familiar forest rules seem rewritten by altitude, granite, and deep shade. At lower elevations, oak woodland and chaparral give way to conifers, and the air cools as the road threads upward through canyons. Even the light changes, becoming greener and more filtered with each turn. The giant sequoia groves carry a presence that's hard to measure. Their crowns sit high above the usual forest ceiling. Walk among them, and the sounds of footsteps, wind, and distant woodpeckers seem softened, as if absorbed by living walls. Granite dominates the park's bones, smooth domes, fractured slabs, and pale boulders scattered like dropped pieces of architecture. In places, the stone holds pockets of soil just long enough for stubborn pines and wildflowers to take root. Underground, marble caves such as Crystal Cave add another layer where dripstone and darkness replace needles and sun. Water works slowly here, shaping corridors that feel closer to geology than landscape. And when the day settles, the park's most distinctive feature remains close and tangible: the thick, cinnamon-red bark of the giant sequoias, furrowed like cooled lava and warm to the touch in late light. Pacific Coast Highway traces California's edge with a steady rhythm of headlands, small beaches, and towns that still keep their daily pace. On Pacific Coast Highway, California, United States, the scenery changes mile by mile without asking for attention. Near Malibu, El Matador State Beach hides sea caves and arches that appear at low tide, best reached by a short stairway down the bluff. Farther north, Point Mugu's broad sand and low mountains feel surprisingly open beside the road. In Santa Barbara County, Gaviota's coastline turns quieter, with wind-carved sandstone pockets and long views across the channel. If the timing is right, you can watch trains slip between chaparral and surf. Big Sur's famous overlooks have their own pull, but Limekiln State Park offers a softer stop. Redwoods, creek crossings, and the mossy remnants of old lime kilns. A little farther on, McWay Falls drops onto a tucked cove that stays just out of reach. Up in Cambria and Cayucos, boardwalks, pie shops, and weathered piers make easy breaks between drives. Most visitors can use a local eSIM for dependable maps, and cafe Wi-Fi is common in the larger beach towns when reception thins out. North of Santa Cruz, the stretch near Davenport feels like a local secret, with farm stands, cliffside pullouts, and gray-green water under drifting fog. Even the sound changes, from traffic to wind and shorebirds. Bodega Bay sits on a bend of the Sonoma coast where working docks and quiet views share the same waterline. In Bodega Bay, California, United States, the pace feels tied to tide charts and morning fog. Along the harbor, Fishing boats unload Dungeness crab, while pelicans hold position over the channel, barely moving their wings. A short walk brings you to small overlooks, where kelp beds darken the surface like brush strokes. Bodega Head is the place locals use to read the ocean, with low bluffs, wind-bent grasses, and wide angles on the mouth of the bay. In season, gray whales pass close enough that a patient watcher can track a spout and a rolling back. For a quieter trail, the Pinnacle Gulch threads through coastal scrub to pocket beaches where driftwood gathers and waves arrive in measured sets. Even on busy weekends, the sound of the highway fades behind the vegetation. Doran Regional Park offers a different mood, with picnic tables facing protected water and kites leaning into steady afternoon wind. The bay side stays calm, while the ocean side keeps its surf, separated by one narrow strip of land. What lingers here is that long, curved sand spit at Doran Beach, turning open Pacific energy into a sheltered inner harbor you can see at a glance. Kelso Dunes sits quietly in the heart of the Mojave National Preserve, where pale mountains and open sky leave plenty of room for silence. The first view is a broad sweep of sand that feels unexpectedly coastal, miles from any shoreline. These dunes formed as winds gathered grains from the dry basins nearby, piling them into one of the largest dune fields in California. Creosote, desert holly, and hardy grasses hold on at the edges, while tracks in the morning light hint at kangaroo rats and sidewinders moving after dark. Not far away, the restored Kelso Depot recalls the era when rail lines stitched across the desert and small communities depended on water stops and freight schedules. Today, it's a good place to get your bearings before the sand takes over the view. Walking the main ridge is straightforward but slow, with each step sinking and sliding in a way that turns distance into time. Late afternoon brings softer light and cooler air, and the long descent back down can feel like gliding. Most visitors base themselves in Baker or Barstow, since services are sparse once you leave the highways. Cell coverage can be spotty, so downloading offline maps and topping off water and fuel beforehand makes the day calmer. What sets Kelso dunes apart is the deep, low boom the sand can make when it slips in a broad sheet under your feet, a brief, resonant note that seems to come from inside the dune itself. Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park sits quietly on the Big Sur coast, where the Santa Lucia Range leans toward the Pacific and the air carries salt and bay laurel. The scenery feels close, not distant, as if you're walking inside a landscape painting. In Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park, California, United States, short trails deliver quick changes in mood, from sunlit coastal scrub to a shaded canyon of redwoods and maple. Even the soundscape shifts, from wind in grass to water moving over stone. The park's best-known path heads to an ocean overlook, where a fenced viewpoint frames cliffs, surf, and a narrow cove far below. Late light softens everything, and the coastline takes on a muted, silvery tone. Look closely, and the details multiply. Succulents gripping rock, kelp lines offshore, and seabirds cutting low across the swells. On clear days, the horizon feels near enough to measure. This stretch of Highway 1 is often described as one of America's impossible places, yet here it's accessible in ordinary steps and quiet pauses. The park rewards visitors who slow down and let the wind set the pace. Practical planning helps. Cell service can be unreliable along the coast, so offline maps are useful before you arrive. Lodging tends to cluster in Big Sur or farther north around Carmel and Monterey, where Wi-Fi is generally easy to find in inns and cafes. McWay Falls sits quietly along the Big Sur coast, a short, sheltered drop of fresh water in a landscape better known for its big views than its small details. In McWay Falls, California, United States, the setting is Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park, where redwood shade gives way to sunlit bluffs above the Pacific. The air often carries salt and damp stone at the same time. Many people pass by on Highway 1, focused on the next turnout and the next curve, and the park's signed parking can feel easy to miss. Along this stretch, dangerous roads are part of the geography, not just the drive. The main overlook is brief and deliberate. A short walk, a railing, and then that compact cove opening beneath the cliffs. Below, our kelp lines darken the water, and the beach reads like a pale comma between rock and sea. Look longer, and the details come forward. Wind-combed chaparral, patterned sandstone, and the steady, unhurried sound of falling water. Even on busy days, the cove itself feels contained and separate. What sets McWay Falls apart is simple and concrete. A narrow waterfall landing directly on a pocket of sand inside McWay Cove, with the surf sometimes reaching its base at high tide. Badwater Basin sits quietly at the edge of Death Valley, where the land settles into a broad white floor under an immense desert sky. In Badwater Basin, California, United States, the air often feels still, and distance can be hard to judge. The basin is framed by dark mountains, Telescope Peak to the west, and the Black Mountains to the east, so the salt seems even brighter by contrast. When the light is low, subtle pinks and grays move across the flats like a slow change of fabric. This landscape is built from ancient lakes that evaporated again and again, leaving minerals behind in thick layers. After rare rains, a thin sheet of water can briefly mirror the ridgelines before the sun takes it back. The walk from the parking area is short, but heat can make it feel longer, and so early morning or late afternoon is kinder. Simple, good-value lodging is usually found around Furnace Creek or in nearby desert towns, and it helps to download maps ahead of time since cell service can be uneven. Up on the cliff, a small sea-level marker makes the geography tangible, while the basin floor sits far below it. Even without wind, you can hear faint crunches as boots press into the crust. Out on the flats, the most distinctive detail is the hard hexagonal salt polygons, fitted together like a pale mosaic across the lowest ground. Alameda Falls sits at the edge of a wild coastline where forest trails end in open sky and salt air. Not far from the Bay Area, it offers a rare kind of quiet that feels earned. In Alameda Falls, California, United States, the route most people take threads through Point Reyes National Seashore, passing coyote brush, wind-shaped cypress, and pockets of coastal scrub. The path can be muddy after rain, and the air often carries a cool, mineral fog. You'll cross small creeks and skirt wetland ponds where shorebirds feed in the shallows. In spring, the hillsides can turn green almost overnight, then fade back to gold as the season dries. The final approach demands attention because unofficial side trails along the bluff can be steep and fragile. Many visitors time their walk with the tides when the beach is more forgiving and the surf leaves room to pass. When the Pacific is calm, The shoreline feels spacious, framed by dark rock and drifting kelp. Even on busy weekends, the wind and surf tend to soften voices into the background. Alamere's defining detail is simple and unmistakable. A ribbon of fresh water dropping straight off a coastal bluff and landing directly on the sand, just a few steps from the tide line. Monterey Bay sits along a calm curve of the central California coast, where working harbors and protected water share the same horizon. In Monterey Bay, California, United States, the scenery often feels familiar until you slow down and notice the details. On Cannery Row, the old fish-packing buildings now hold small museums, bookshops, and quiet corners looking out over the rocks. Early mornings are best when the air is cool and the shoreline sounds carry farther. Walk the Monterey Bay Coastal Trail, and you'll pass tide pools tucked into dark stone, with anemones and ochre sea stars clinging to the edges. The path keeps the ocean close without demanding a long hike. Across the water, Pacific Grove's shoreline turns into a patchwork of cypress, pocket beaches, and low cliffs. At Asilomar State Beach, the dunes and boardwalks make room for long views and a steady wind. For a quieter detour, Point Lobos State Natural Reserve offers short trails through coastal scrub to coves where sea lions rest on the rocks. The light changes quickly here, especially when fog slips in. Travel is straightforward. You can usually find simple, good-value lodging in seaside or marina and still reach the waterfront in minutes. Cell service is reliable in town, and most cafes along Lighthouse Avenue offer solid Wi-Fi. What sets this bay apart is the Monterey Canyon just offshore, a deep, cold blue cut in the sea floor that brings nutrient-rich water up toward the surface. Even from land, you can feel its presence in the chill, the kelp, and the wildlife close to shore. General Sherman Tree sits in a shaded grove where the air carries a faint, resinous scent and footfalls soften on fallen needles. In General Sherman Tree, California, United States, the scale feels less like a spectacle and more like a slow fact you notice step by step. The short trail is gentle, but the experience changes with the hour. Early morning brings quiet benches, and late afternoon turns the bark a muted copper. Even with nearby parking, the last few yards invite you to slow down. Look past the famous name, and you'll see a whole neighborhood. Young sequoias in the understory, dogwoods and ferns catching stray light, and small snowmelt rivulets in spring. The forest floor is crowded with thyme, layered in cones, charcoal, and ash-gray logs. A few minutes away, a Sequoia National Park offers lesser-known walks, Congress Trails clusters, the darker hush of the giant forest after rain, and viewpoints where the Sierra Nevada spreads out in clean lines. The surprises here are often simple: a sudden cool draft, the scent of wet bark, a woodpecker's measured tapping. People talk about height, but the real astonishment is the trunk's breadth, especially when you circle it and lose track of where front is. You start to notice how little the tree needs from us: just space, light, and seasons. Up close, its most distinctive feature is the thick, deeply furrowed cinnamon-colored bark, padded and quiet to the touch, built to shrug off heat and time. Joshua Tree National Park feels like a quiet borderland where two deserts overlap, and time seems measured in wind and stone. In Joshua Tree National Park, California, United States, the air can shift from Mojave cool to Colorado desert heat within a short drive. Start at Hidden Valley, a natural ring of boulders that softens the sound of nearby roads and turns footfalls into a kind of hush. A little farther on, the Hall of Horrors shows how granite stacks into corridors and shaded slots. Barker Dam is easy to overlook, yet after winter rain, it holds a shallow pool that draws birds and mule deer to the margins. Even when dry, old ranch-era stonework sits patiently in the sand. At Keys View, the park opens into distance, ridges, basins, and on clear days, the pale line of the Salton Sea far below. It's a wide-angle look at Southern California without the noise. The Collar Cactus Garden catches low light like a field of fine needles, bright and deceptive. Photographers on Hyder Planet often come for sunrise, then stay for the stillness between shadows. After dark, the park's biggest spectacle is simply the sky, made sharper by dry air and sparse development. Stars appear without hurry, as if someone turned down the glare. And in the end, it's the Joshua trees themselves, twisted trunks, forked arms, and bristled crowns, standing in scattered groves across the rock. Their silhouettes give this landscape its unmistakable outline. Bixby Creek Bridge sits along a quiet bend of Highway 1, where the Santa Lucia Range meets the Pacific in a single, clean sweep of concrete. At Bixby Creek Bridge, California, United States, the landscape feels both engineered and untamed, with chaparral-coated slopes dropping towards surf-worn rock. Morning fog often lingers, softening the edges of the canyon. Pullouts nearby turn the drive into a slow study of light and distance, especially when the sun breaks through in narrow bands. On weekdays, the soundscape can narrow to wind, gulls, and the hush of tires on pavement. A short detour north leads into the coves of Garrapata State Park, where trails slip down to pocket beaches and tide pools. Southward, Pfeiffer Big Sur State Park offers redwoods and creek shade that feel far removed from the exposed coast. Even the viewpoints have their own rhythm, with waves timing the scene below and hawks circling above the ridgeline. The best moments tend to arrive between cars, when the coast seems briefly unclaimed. What stays with you is the pale open spandrel arch, suspended over a steep, rocky creek canyon that funnels your eye straight out to the moving blue of the Pacific. Point Reyes Lighthouse sits at the edge of a wind-shaped peninsula where California's coastal weather changes by the minute. At Point Reyes Lighthouse, California, United States, the Pacific feels close enough to touch, even from far above. The road through Point Reyes National Seashore passes Tule elk pastureland and cypress shelter belts before the scenery turns spare and marine. Fog often arrives without warning, softening the headlands into pale layers. Built to guide ships past a notorious meeting of currents and shoals, the station speaks quietly of hard navigation and harder nights. It's a reminder that danger doesn't need spectacle. Sometimes it's just wind, rock, and poor visibility, like the world's most dangerous roads in another kind of terrain. On clear days, you can track the shoreline toward Tamales Bay and sense how the peninsula narrows into the sea. Look long enough, and the waterline becomes a moving map of swells and kelp-dark patches. For a simple visit, most travelers do well arriving early for parking and bringing a warm layer, even in summer. Cell coverage can be spotty, so downloading maps on Wi-Fi in nearby Inverness or Point Reyes Station helps. The experience comes down to one physical detail: the long staircase dropping into the cliff, step after step, until the lighthouse finally sits level with the roaring surf below. A 17-mile drive threads along the Monterey Peninsula, where the Pacific meets quiet neighborhoods and wind-shaped forests. Known formally as 17-Mile Drive, California, United States, it's a toll road, but it feels like a moving overlook. Much of the pleasure is in slowing down. Pullouts appear without fanfare, and the soundscape changes from surf to cypress needles ticking in the breeze. On cool mornings, low fog softens the coastline into layers of gray and green. At Fanshell Overlook, harbor seals haul out on pale sand, and seasonal closures give the rookery room to breathe. Nearby, Spanish Bay turns the shoreline into a long, walking-scale panorama, especially when the tide is low. Bird Rock is less about the rock itself than the busy edges around it. Pelicans gliding inches above the water, and sea lions punctuating the air with blunt, conversational barks. Kelp beds darken the surface like brushed ink. Inland, Crocker Grove holds one of the peninsula's denser stands of Monterey cypress, their trunks twisted into forms that look hand-carved, even in daylight. The grove carries a muted, chapel-like shade. Pebble Beach and Carmel's Coves sit close by, yet the drive keeps slipping back into quieter corners, granite shelves, tide pools, and short trails that end at the waterline. Every stop feels measured, not hurried. The image that stays is the lone cypress, anchored to a bare granite outcrop, its wind-combed canopy leaning steadily above the white seam of surf. Carmel by the sea coast feels carefully composed, where a small village edge gives way to open Pacific air and a shore that stays surprisingly uncluttered. Just down the curve lies Carmel by the Sea Coast, California, United States, a stretch that rewards slow-looking more than long drives. At Carmel City Beach, the sand is broad and pale, and the surf arrives in clean, even sets that draw walkers as much as swimmers. Dog prints, gull tracks, and the occasional sea otter sighting leave a quiet record of the morning. Follow scenic road along the bluffs, and you'll find pocket stairways, benches, and view angles that change with every cove. On clear days, the horizon looks close enough to measure, while fog can soften everything into muted grays. South of town, Point Lobos State Natural Reserve offers short trails that loop past granite shelves, tide pools, and kelp dark water. Harbor seals often rest on the rocks, and the air carries that sharp mix of salt and coastal sage. Farther down, the Big Sur coastline begins to lean wilder near Garrapata State Park, where footpaths slip through ice plant and open to sudden, empty overlooks. Even without a long hike, the land feels spare and wind-shaped. What stays most distinctive here is the Monterey cypress, twisted and flattened by years of onshore wind, clinging to the granite edges above the kelp-lined shallows. Pacific Grove coastline settles along the outer curve of Monterey Bay, where small neighborhood streets end at open water and the sound of surf carries across low dunes. In Pacific Grove coastline, California, United States, the shoreline feels close up and lived in. Joggers, dog walkers, and binocular-toting locals sharing the same narrow edge of land. Between Lovers Point and Point Pinos, the scene shifts every few minutes. A protected cove, then exposed rock ledges, then a pocket of sand where children hunt for smooth pebbles. Offshore, kelp beds darken the surface, and sea otters often float on their backs, cracking shellfish with steady, unhurried motions. Pelicans skim low, using the wind like a quiet conveyor belt. At Asilomar, at the dunes and boardwalks keep the beach intact, and late-day fog can roll in so gently that the horizon seems to soften rather than disappear. The best hours arrive with a low tide, when the water draws back and reveals miniature basins of life, anemones, mussels, and bright sea stars tucked into crevices. What stays with you here is the broad, honeycombed granite at the waterline, cut into tide pools that hold clear seawater like small, temporary mirrors. Santa Monica Beach sits at the western edge of Los Angeles, where everyday city life meets a long, approachable stretch of Pacific shoreline. Along the wide strand, the Santa Monica Pier gets the attention, but the quieter pleasure is watching locals pace the bike path at an unhurried weekday tempo. Just north, the original Muscle Beach area offers a small, open-air snapshot of California fitness culture, rings, bars, and a steady rhythm of practice without much ceremony. A short walk inland brings you to Tongva Park, a compact hillside of winding paths, native plantings, and shaded benches that feel removed from the traffic a block away. For a different kind of beach day, and the Annenberg Community Beach House preserves a piece of Santa Monica's coastal history, with public pools and palm-framed views beside the sand. Up on Palisades Park, the bluff-top overlooks deliver the coastline in layers, pathways, palms, and the shoreline unfurling below toward Will Rogers State Beach. At Santa Monica Beach, California, United States, the most distinctive detail is the marine layer, a cool, low blanket of fog that slides in off the water and turns late-day sunlight into a soft, silvery glow. Malibu coast feels like a long exhale at the edge of Los Angeles, where the Santa Monica Mountains lean close enough to salt the chaparral. Along Malibu Coast, California, United States, the Pacific Coast Highway keeps pace with the surf, sometimes narrow, sometimes sun-glared, and often misfiled online beside world-dangerous roads. Here, it's more a slow corridor to overlooked pullouts. Slip into El Matador State Beach near low tide, and sea caves frame the water like dark windows with scalloped rocks that turn ordinary footsteps into careful, quiet choreography. The sand is pocketed, not sprawling, and that's part of its charm. Farther west, Leo Carrillo's tide pools hold an aquarium in miniature. Anemones, hermit crabs, and seaweed moving like breath. And even a short walk can feel removed from the traffic's steady hush. Inland, Solstice Canyon and Malibu Creek State Park trade salt air for sycamore shade, boulders, and the occasional trickle of waterfall after winter rains. The shift from beach to canyon happens in minutes, not miles. At Point Doom, the most distinctive detail waits at the base of the bluff, honeycombed sandstone shelves that fill with clear, cold tide water, each little basin catching sky and foam in the same still frame. Santa Barbara Coast feels like a quieter California, where the shoreline settles into an easy rhythm between working harbors and long, walkable beaches. Just offshore, the Santa Barbara Channel keeps the water cool and the air surprisingly mild. On the waterfront, the red tile roof lines of Stearns Wharf and the small boat slips of the harbor offer a lived-in view, best taken slowly with the sound of rigging and seabirds. Nearby, the wide sand at East Beach can look almost empty on weekday mornings. For a bluff-top walk, Douglas Family Preserve holds open grass, wind-bent shrubs, and sudden windows to the sea. A little farther west, Elwood Mesa layers eucalyptus groves over coastal trails that end above quiet surf. And follow the coast toward Goleta, and you'll find tide pools near Coal Oil Point, where anemones and small crabs appear at low tide. Those are the kinds of details that keep people collecting unseen places, hide-a-planet rumors and all, without needing to go far. At Gaviota, the landscape turns wilder. Pale bluffs, kelp-dark water, and rails that thread along the shoreline. In clear weather, the Channel Islands sit low on the horizon like muted silhouettes. What stays most distinctive here is the coast's rare east-west line, letting the evening sun drop straight ahead into open Pacific water, a clean, unblocked horizon. Mammoth Mountain sits above the high desert edge of the Sierra Nevada, where light, thin air, and sudden weather changes shape every view. In Mammoth Mountain, California, United States, the town and the slopes share the same practical rhythm: early starts, layered clothing, and a steady watch on the sky. Winter brings a polished, resort-facing side, but the quieter story is in the spaces between marked runs, where wind sculpts, cornices, and lodgepole pines hold pockets of calm snow. By summer, the gondola trades skis for hikers, and the mountain opens into broad, dry trails with lupine, paintbrush, and the occasional whistle of a marmot from the rocks. A short drive leads to Devil's Post Piles, hexagonal basalt, and the shaded San Joaquin headwaters, reminders that fire and water have taken turns here for a long time. Along US 395, winter storms can turn the approach into the kind of footage people label world, dangerous roads, dangerous places, even when locals treat it as ordinary caution. Hot creeks, steaming channels, and the open sweep of the Long Valley caldera keep the landscape feeling unfinished as if it's still settling into its final form. Up high, Mammoth's most distinctive detail is the faint geothermal breath, small fumaroles, warming patches of pale pumice near the summit, carrying a light sulfur note on cold air. Redwood National and State Parks sit quietly along California's far north coast, where fog and ocean air keep the forest cool and damp. In Redwood National and State Parks, California, United States, the road can shift from open pasture to shadowed groves in just a few minutes. Pullouts along Newton B. Drury Scenic Parkway make it easy to step into stillness without a long hike. Prairie Creek Redwood State Park holds some of the most approachable old growth, with trails that feel hushed even on busy weekends. Farther north, Jedediah Smith Redwood State Park follows the Smith River, where bright water slides past trunks the size of small rooms. For a different texture, the coastal edge near Gold Bluffs Beach mixes wind, dunes, and the dark line of forest behind it. A fern canyon, when conditions are right, becomes a narrow corridor of dripping walls, shaped by small streams and seasonal runoff. Nearby towns like Crescent City and Arcata usually have straightforward lodging, and cell service can fade inside the deeper groves, so offline maps help. Most cafes and motels have reliable Wi-Fi for checking trail conditions and fog forecasts. What lingers here is the living ceiling of coast redwoods, needles catching the mist so lightly that the air itself seems to bead and fall in slow, quiet drops. Antelope Valley, California. Poppy Reserve feels like a quiet pause on the edge of the Mojave, where spring can briefly outshine the surrounding scrub. The light here is clean and open, the kind that makes distances look closer than they are. In Antelope Valley, California, Poppy Reserve, California, United States, low hills fold gently beneath wide skies, and narrow trails guide you through habitats that can change week by week. Even on modest bloom years, the landscape keeps its spare, western clarity. Boardwalks and packed dirt paths protect the fragile plants, while giving you close views of seed pods, lupine, and the small insects that do much of the hidden work. A visitor center explains how rainfall, temperature, and wind decide what the season will show. Come early for softer sun and fewer footprints, and expect breezes that can cool the air even when the valley looks warm. Most visitors stay in nearby Lancaster or Palmdale, where finding familiar hotels and reliable Wi-Fi is usually straightforward. Driving the back roads, you'll notice how quickly the reserve gives way to ranch fences, Joshua trees, and long utility corridors. Ordinary California infrastructure beside a sudden pocket of color. It's a place best taken slowly, with time for quiet scanning. What lingers most is the wind, moving through the poppy fields, combing bright orange petals into shifting bands across the hills, like a living surface that changes with every gust. Channel Islands sit just offshore from Southern California, close enough to feel familiar, yet separated by a stretch of water that changes everything. In Channel Islands, California, United States, the mainland fades quickly, replaced by open sky and a quieter horizon. On Santa Cruz Island, sea caves and kelp-fringed coves turn a short hike into a lesson in coastal geology. High above, patchwork canyons hold oak shade and the small, tough plants that make these islands their own. Anacapa is narrow and wind-shaped, with a lighthouse that watches over a busy marine corridor. Along the cliffs, brown pelicans glide low, and tide pools collect tiny worlds in plain sight. Santa Rosa feels wide and pastoral, where coastal dunes meet grassy flats, and the air smells faintly of sage. Trails pass quiet beaches that often hold more footprints from gulls than from people. All around the park, the Santa Barbara Channel carries a living forest, towering kelp that sways beneath the surface, dimming the light and softening the sound of the sea.